Class is now in session. I am Professor Hockey, and today we'll be discussing the game between the Sharks and the Flames, in which the Sharks lost 5-3, and so they split the season series versus the Calgary Flames 2-2. They also find themselves locked into second place in the Pacific Division as the Flames lock up first place, and as such, the Sharks will indeed be facing off against the Vegas Golden Knights in the first round of the playoffs, as the Golden Knights are unable to be caught by the Arizona Coyotes for that third place spot in the Pacific Division. So for those of you who enjoyed the game last night against the Golden Knights, as it was certainly an enjoyable one, that the Sharks win 4-3 in overtime, it looks like we're going to get at the very least 4 of those types of games in about a week and a half's time. But in this game, the Calgary Flames start off pretty well in the first few minutes. They seem to be the team in control with the zone time, but the Sharks respond quite well. They end up with the next 7 or 8 minutes being the much better team, getting some solid zone time. There was a shift that ended up being 2 shifts in the offensive zone that lasted about a minute and a half, and while the Sharks didn't score there, they got a ton of zone time, and it eventually results in Timo Meier's 30th goal of the year for the Sharks to take the lead in this one. But at about the 15-minute mark, once Sean Monahan gets his goal to tie it up, that's where it just seemingly all falls apart for the San Jose Sharks. They then let in goals to Jankowski and Dalton Prout, his first of the year, by the way, in quick succession. Those 3 goals coming in within 75 seconds of each other, and it's 3-1 at the end of the first period. Come second period, if you thought the Sharks were going to have some sort of fight, you were definitely wrong about that, as the Sharks do basically absolutely nothing in the second period. Not like the Flames were some sort of dominant team either, as their only goal coming from Michael Backlund off of a pretty lucky bounce off of the stick of Joachim Ryan, and as such, they lead 4-1 going into the third period, and the Calgary Flames are the league's best third period team, and yet the Sharks still put up a pretty admirable performance there. They start off rather well. They get Couture's 27th to bring it to within 2. Nothing impossible for the Sharks, as not like the Calgary Flames have the best of goaltending. But Michael Frolik basically deflates the Sharks' any sort of momentum that they have with his goal to make it 5-2 for the Flames. Eventually, the Sharks do make it 5-3 with Kevin Labanc's goal in the last 3 or so minutes of the game, but it seems as though the referee took upon himself to basically end this game with whatever that was against Timo Meier, the cross-checking call. At least from the replay I saw, I'm really not sure in any universe, especially in this situation, 2.5 minutes left in a pretty intense game, I guess you could say, why that is a penalty. But whatever, the Sharks probably not too deserving of winning this game, and being able to tie that one up would have been very tough, and the Sharks drop it 5-3. So the first thing to talk about would be Aaron Dell, and let me say before I get into Dell, as I just said just a few seconds ago, that the Sharks probably didn't really deserve to win this game, only putting up 15 shots, which is a season low by a decent amount. As the Sharks, yes, there was some bad puck luck. There were some opportunities that the Sharks could have gotten on net, but they just didn't make it. Some tips wide, some tips high, some pucks bouncing over sticks. We saw the Sharks fail a 2-on-0 shorthanded in this game that I don't believe even resulted in a shot on net. So there was some bad luck, but just in general, the Sharks not playing super well offensively. But this felt a lot like the game against the Anaheim Ducks a couple weeks earlier, in which Dell also started in. That, the game wasn't played super well by the Sharks, but neither was played super well by the Calgary Flames. So this game was up for the taking, I felt, even with just 15 shots, and Aaron Dell just not doing any favors for the Sharks in trying to keep them in this game. I mean, the goal against Monahan was very similar to the goal that the Sharks let in against William Karlsson just yesterday. I said Martin Jones, it was a tough save to make, but you'd like to see him make it. This was a similar situation for Aaron Dell. Doesn't come up big with that one. The Jankowski one, very similar. I thought Dell could have made this save. Doesn't do it. The Dalton Prout one, I thought Dell could potentially make this save. Doesn't do it. So while none are completely his fault, you'd like to see your goaltender at the very least make at least a single save here in these 3 chances within the span of 75 seconds. But Dell just can't come up big at any point for the San Jose Sharks, like he couldn't do in that game against the Ducks. And while in the second period he sort of held down the fort, of course, not his fault, that Michael Backlund goal. Again, the Flames didn't get too much generated, and come third period, when the Sharks finally seemed to maybe get back into the game with that Couture goal, he makes a massive misplay by seemingly thinking his crease instead of in front of the net is to the left side of the net, as he stays basically outside of the crease for a good 3 to 4 seconds before coming back in front into the crease and failing to make this save on Frolik. And so Arundel just not doing the Sharks any favors. It has been sort of a case for Arundel this entire season, just not doing enough for the Sharks. And so, as I said, while the Sharks didn't necessarily deserve to win, this wasn't a game that the Sharks had stolen away from them by the Flames. This was technically 2 points that were up for grabs, and in a situation where the Sharks were coming off of a huge emotional game against the Golden Knights, where they had just about 40 hits, an overtime game, a game that snapped a massive losing streak. You're maybe hoping your goaltender can come up big for you, and because you're probably not going to have your best game of the season, and while 15 shots is certainly a lot less than you'd like to get, Arundel not doing the Sharks any favors with his performance. Next, I will talk about Timo Meier, who actually had a pretty solid game here for the Sharks. Of course, his 30th goal of the year. He continues to lead all Swiss-born players ever in terms of goals. He's over 60 points now. He's been a lot better in these past few games, and this is very key going into the playoff because the way Meier plays the game, coming up against the Golden Knights with the way they play the game, it is very important that Meier is playing well. Players like Meier, players like Kane, players like Hertl will be huge key pieces in that series against the Golden Knights, and Meier picking up his pace. Hertl has been pretty consistently strong all year, and while Kane wasn't super effective tonight, he was very good against the Golden Knights the previous night, and so Meier in particular, as well as Hertl and Kane, are going to be huge pieces for that game against the Golden Knights, and so Meier playing very well in these last few ones, and in particular here tonight, is good going forward for the Sharks. Next, I of course have to mention Joachim Ryan, as he once again had a pretty bad game. Joachim Ryan doing nothing for the Sharks at this point, and I'm beginning to think that it's less so that Shemek was some sort of huge piece as being so good for the Sharks defensively, but I feel like Shemek was important for the Sharks because he basically kept Joachim Ryan from coming into the lineup, because Ryan has just been so bad for the Sharks. There's not even any sort of words that you can give him as sort of encouragement. I mean, I've said at times that I like it, that he's been a bit more aggressive, but that has seemingly stopped at this point. Now he's just playing bad in general. It seems as though every other shift he's making some sort of glaring mistake. And the thing is that DeBoer isn't going back to the whole benching route, because it's technically possible that even when Karlsson comes back, Joachim Ryan is the option over Tim Heed, because he does play that left side to go next to Brent Burns, and I don't know if Heed is going to be able to match up with Burns on that pairing. And so it's possible that Ryan is the defender going into the playoffs next to Brent Burns as that sixth defender, and while the Sharks can bury his minutes, certainly, because Erik Karlsson is someone hopefully who will be able to eat up about 25 minutes a night as long as the groin doesn't hold him back too much, that's still going to be 7 or 8 minutes where Joachim Ryan has proven that he can make multiple mistakes during that time. So I don't want to see Joachim Ryan play the game that Shemek was playing. I don't need him to be a penalty killer. I don't need him to be playing at the very least 15 to 18 minutes a night. I just need him to be, when he's on the ice, he's sound defensively and he's not making too many mistakes. But it seems as though Joachim Ryan has proven multiple times this season, at least in this stretch of games where he has played, that he can't even do at the very least that. But that will do it for this review. The Sharks will be back in action on Tuesday. They will face off against the Vancouver Canucks, a team that the Sharks I don't believe have lost to this season. The Canucks are also not in a playoff spot. They're not fighting for a playoff spot at all, and they're a pretty young team, so the Sharks should be able to get the win there. But at this point, the Sharks are fighting for basically nothing. They're basically just seeing if maybe they can get like 100 points, but there really is no motivation for them to play for anything. I guess maybe they just want to get better going into the playoffs would be the only thing, but we'll see if the Sharks will actually come out flat in that game, because there really is nothing to play for, or if they're going to be more professional and actually put up a solid performance against a pretty weak team like the Canucks. Class dismissed.